Some say that once you're saved, you're always saved, and then others say that you can lose your salvation. There's a verse in Revelation saying that if you don't overcome, I will blot your name from the book of life. That implies to me that salvation can be lost. What do you guys think?
Want me to go first? Okay.
Senior pastor.
Yeah, this is it's a common reoccurring question. And here's the thing that you find in the Scripture, and this is why we have the controversy. You can find a litany of verses which, standing alone, seem to suggest you can't possibly lose your salvation. You are held in the Father's hand. No one can pluck you out. He that begun a good work in you shall see it through to the end. Nothing can nothing can come between you and the love of Christ. And there's all these real strong assurance passages. Got that. But you also find a bunch of passages that warn about falling away, and if you do fall away, the latter state is worse than the first. You're like a dog that returns to its vomit, and so on and so on. So how do you put those two together? And what happens is some groups say, oh, we're eternally secure, and now they got to really do gymnastics around this set of verses, and other people say, oh, you have to choose to continue to believe, and then they sometimes have to do gymnastics around these sets of verses. I would suggest to you this, that taking the whole thing in context, what you get in Scripture is that if you're committed to Christ and there's a sign of kingdom life, then you should have the assurance that God's hanging on to you. That this isn't just a matter of your free will, that He's holding on to you. There's there's a covenant there, and He's going to hang on to you and see it through to the end. You need the assurance. On the other hand, if there's no sign of life in you, no sign of kingdom life, you're not walking with God, maybe you don't even believe in God, maybe you once upon a time did, but you need to hear the warning passages. And to really take those seriously. All those are designed to at least cause a person who's not walking with God to worry. Now, the thing is that the Arminians who held that you could lose your salvation and the Calvinists who held you couldn't all agreed on that. Whether you're Calvinist or Arminian, they all held that a person who is walking with God, none of us do it perfectly, but there's signs of life there, you should have the assurance. And that a person who's not walking with God and there are no signs of life, they need the warning. So practically speaking, it was an issue that didn't make a difference. Until the middle of the 19th century, a new doctrine was birthed. It became prevalent among the Southern Baptists. I'm not sure exactly where it originated, but it was a new belief that said that once you profess faith in Jesus Christ, at whatever age and whatever situation, then you're assured of salvation regardless of what happens later on. And that's what came to be known as eternal security. Calvin called this doctrine of eternal security the perseverance of the saints, because he believed that if you really were one of God's elect, you'll persevere to the end. If you fell away, well, then that was a sign that you weren't really one of God's elect. This new doctrine said you can fall away and you still have the assurance. And so I've met people who are living in the most grotesque kinds of sin imaginable and don't care at all about what God thinks about this, but they have the assurance that they're saved because when they're 4 years old, they confess Jesus Christ as Lord. And both Calvin and Arminius would turn over in the grave in response to that. And so my admonition is this: know that God's holding on to you if you're walking with God. If you're just living your own life in sin, whatever, you need to hear these warning passages and come back to the fold.
Part of this question, any question that involves the question of salvation, whether it's how do I know if I'm saved, can I lose my salvation, what really hinges on another question that we often don't ask ourselves, at least out loud or in a community like this, which is, we talk about being saved all the time, but are we clear what it is Scripture says we're being saved from? Until we know and we're all clear and agree what it is we're being saved from, it's hard to know whether I can lose that salvation. And I think for most people in America, Jay Leno did a jaywalking poll around the streets of Manhattan and said, when Christians say they're saved, what is it they're saved from? I think if you ask most people that, typical answer is hell, right? We don't want to go to hell. That's not the primary answer that you ever see in Scripture. When the angel Gabriel comes to Mary and says, you will have a son, you will call him Jesus, Yeshua, which is, of course, a derivative of the name Joshua, which means Yahweh delivers or Yahweh saves. He says that you're going to call him that for he shall save his people from, he doesn't say hell, he says from their sins, from their covenant-breaking patterns of relating to God and each other. If we frame the question that way, I think in every conceivable way, the Christian idea of being saved is so different then. It isn't, do I got a get-out-of-hell-free card that I get to keep no matter what I do, which is what lingers behind this question for so many people. If it's not about getting out of hell free, but if it's about getting out of the ways of living that would send me to hell in the first place, that, now, can I fall away from that? Well, yeah, I can turn and become self-centered and start breaking covenant with God and with you whenever, but why would I do that if what I'm being called to is being the radical people, kingdom of God who radically love God and love each other? And it really changes the question around.
That's so essential, because the question, really, eternal security as it's posed today, usually in the light of that Southern Baptist teaching that arose in the 19th century, it's framed strictly in legal terms. Like legally, if I pray this magical prayer, am I legally secure no matter what I do? And Paul and I would both say that is the exact wrong way to frame the issue. In these legal, like a court of law sort of thing. Frame the issue in terms of covenant. And the best model of covenant we have, really the only model of covenant we have yet today, is marriage. And in marriage, if someone's thinking about how much can I get away with and still not get divorced, you really got a bad marriage. That shouldn't be the issue. The issue is how close can you get to your spouse, and in that issue you got to know that your covenant is secure. It's not, a healthy marriage, it doesn't hang upon one, night of imperfection, one mistake you make. No, a strong marriage works through mistakes. But if you willfully keep on violating that, well, there can be a point where the marriage is killed. And so for those who look like they're killing a marriage, they need to hear the warning passages. Get back in this marriage. For those who are in the marriage, you need to hear the assurance passages. Your beloved is hanging on to you.